A very good morning to all of you. I am Ella welcoming you all on behalf of Solar Quarter and the First View Group to the Solar Market Outlook Bahrain 2024 webinar, powered by Huawei Digital Power Middle East and Central Asia. Before we proceed further, I would like to thank our panel members for their immense support to organize this event and extend my heartfelt gratitude to Huawei for being our crusaders and making this event possible. Their commitment to promoting sustainable energy solutions is truly commendable. May I now introduce Mr. Omar Abu Najm, Sales Manager, Huawei Digital Power, Middle East and Central Asia, to give the presentation. Over to you, sir.
Okay. I will share the screen. You're seeing the screen, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. First of all, thank you for the introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be presenting today over the new trends that we're having, especially for Bahraini market. Okay. As introduced, my name is Omar Abu Najm. I'm responsible for the sales for the Middle East and Central Asian region. And today my presentation will be over the top trends of the fusion solar and what we have launched recently for 2024, especially for Middle East market. Before going to my presentation and my main points, I would like to give a brief over the topic that I choose today to be covered, especially for Bahraini market. The first thing, which is the thing that we're going to discuss today about the top 10 trends in terms of the solar industry. Okay, but the question here, it comes like how come we can know the trends that it's now happening within the market, or based on what we can say that this is a trend that it's now available within the market, and we can know it based on some forecast that we're having it from the region itself, either the forecast coming from the market inside or from the international organization or from the consulting companies or from the industrial vendors and other suppliers within the solar market here. As well as for Huawei specifically, we're having some kinds of surveys and related to our partner and customers that we're doing. And after analyzing all of this, we are building something called modeling analysis. And by building this modeling analysis, we can know the top trends that it's coming to the market. As well as the question that here it comes again, that why we have to know these top trends, because it's really important about the improvement of the solar systems and installations that we're seeing that it's happening within the Middle East market. Like we're seeing a big jump even from 2023 to 2024, especially in terms of the solar system. As well as we're seeing recently now, there is a big, huge utility projects and some commercial distribution products as well related to ESS and battery storage systems. And this jump, it can be reflected, as you can see here in the numbers, between 2023 up to 2024. There were more than 36 gigawatt hour of storage installation. And we are expecting, as in Huawei, by 2030, that the total overcapacity of the solar, it will be reaching out to around 5,200 gigawatt globally. And by 2050, we're talking about more than 14,000 of gigawatt of solar installation that it will happening within the upcoming years. The main thing about the trends is that we're coming up with these trends based on the challenges that the market is facing, and these challenges, it can be specified based on three main categories. Which the first one, the grid connection challenge, which is we're seeing with some countries that they're having a very high of penetration rate on their grid, as well as the operation and how we are running these systems, that it's a challenge for either the supplier point of view or the developer point of view, as well as the grid operator point of view, and the safety. And because this is a really important part, that our installation or our suppliers of equipment, it has to be meeting some certain criteria of safety due to the requirement and what we're seeing now within the Middle East, as well as and especially in Bahraini market, about the new regulations and policies that the government has issued. Moving now to the core part of the presentation, which is it will be covering the trend number one. As I have mentioned before, we're seeing the solar system. It's shifting from from supplementary power during the past years in 2021. Now, during 2025, we're seeing that the solar and the storage system is becoming primarily power. And this caused, this is because of one main thing, which is the levelizing cost of energy, the dropping of the levelizing cost of energy around by 30%. This is difference between 2021 to 2023. Okay, and levelizing cost of storage is dropped around 60%. And this is all affected the business perspective in terms of solar, as well as the technical perspective, as I will be explaining later on in my slides. The trend number two, which is it's about the management system, about the power plant, because now, especially for these kinds of solutions, when we're talking about solar, combining it with a storage system, it's not just only affecting the supplier point of view, as well as the grid. As I have mentioned, the grid operator, they have to know about the power plant management to manage their grid capabilities as well. And the management system, it has to be going through the supply of the equipment up to the grid operator system. And it gives us to trend number three, which is about the full life cycle of intelligence. Because now the supplier point of view is not just only focusing on planning and construction. And we're seeing this, it has very big developed in terms of planning and construction of the projects. We're seeing recently some of the new technologies that they are using robotic system to make it for the construction of the power plant. But as well as from supplier point of view, we have to take care about the other two parts, which is really important, the maintenance and operation. Okay, because as we mentioned, these projects are very sensitive. It has a very high standard, and we have to keep an update between and to find the harmony between us and the developer that they are installing the project. From Huawei's perspective, we have to look at the full lifetime cycle, which is it's including the planning, construction, maintenance, and operation. And this is reflects as well on the market in terms of capex as well as in terms of opex. We're seeing drop by 50% for the planning and around 40% on the construction side. But there is an improvement on the other side, which is for the maintenance and service, as well as the revenue of the plant. It increased between 70 up to the revenue that it increased by 5%. And that goes us to trend number four. Now we're seeing the new solutions before, maybe during the past years. The main systems was either the on-grid, the normal on-grid, that it has options to do with zero export. But now we're seeing that it's becoming more into hybrid system, which is including the diesel generators. And now we're shifting the diesel generator into the best solutions, which is the battery systems. Okay. Before we were talking about the battery system to be just supporting the load, but now we're seeing the battery system is having more part that it's including either grid forming or the BSS to be a grid following to the load, as well as to be forming the grid from the utility perspective up to residential perspective. Okay, so it's covering all of this part. Is really this is the new trend within the solar market. Moving to the trend number five, which is about the security. And as I have mentioned before, the security, it has to be covered from supplier perspective up to the grid operator perspective. And we have to look into the supply safety, which is the main part of the foundation of Huawei, as well as going to the device safety or the network safety, as well as the grid safety. And what it has to be done in terms of the monitoring platform, in terms of the connection with the load, and how the system is talking to the grid, and how it's complied with the requirement of the grid code, especially about the grid code on Bahraini market. Okay, moving to the trend number six, which is about this is purely Huawei and what we are focusing on now. Okay, from perspective of supplier, when we're talking about safety, we have to take care about the safety that it has to be done from the cell level in terms of the BSS, okay, up to the grid level, okay, which is including the cell level, the back level of the storage itself, the rack level, and the system level overall for the projects, to make sure that this project, it has the highest standard in terms of the safety of the equipment that it's already installed there. And to dig deeply into the safety of the part, Huawei, they're mainly focusing. As we all know, Huawei is not just only a supplier of equipment, but as well as Huawei, they are being a technology provider to the market. And this is what we have seen happen even for the past years. And we shift the industrial from modular level power electronics that we were talking about the central inverter, then we move to the string solutions that it's available nowadays, and then we're moving to the modular level power electronics that, for example, giving an optimizer as an example on this, that it's controlled the module level based on this. But Huawei, they didn't have this only, but we moved as well to the cell level power electronics, which is including the storage system specifically, and going deeply to the site and focusing on the cell type of what we are supplying to the market to make sure that the standards of the equipment is meeting the country's requirement. Okay, and all of this it has done already by Huawei's R&D facilities in China. Trend number 8, as we all know, the system capacity or the output voltage of the systems is now increasing. But based on this increasing, we're seeing a minimum side of losses that it's happening to the system. Huawei was one of the first companies that they have introduced 800-volt AC systems, okay, to the local market. I remember at that time we were having a string inverter of a capacity of 90 kilowatt, and now we're talking about a capacity of 330 kilowatt inverters that it has an output of 800-volt AC. But nowadays we're looking for the higher voltage, which is it reached to a plus 1,000-volt on the AC side, by introducing a new products and new solutions that it can fit the market requirement, and it can solve a customer and client pain point and issues, which is all of this. It gives us the lower of levelizing cost of energy, and it will give us a higher reliability in terms of the operation of the system itself. Trend number 9 here, when we're talking about the frequency, and here is as well, as I have mentioned, this is specifically about Huawei, talking about Huawei, because we are manufactured our own IGBTs in the system, and we saw a huge jump in terms of the components that we are using inside our inverters or inside our storage system. When we were the first generation of semiconductors, it was around 1.1 electron volt, but now we are introducing our 4th generation of IGBTs and internal components that it can meet the higher frequency of 5.5 electron volt, and it's all made by Huawei, and it's all installed in our products. Nowadays Huawei is shifting even their products to be 100% made by Huawei, instead of relying on a third parties of equipment and a third party of components that we're taking it from the local market and putting it in our inverters. No, Huawei is taking this step further to focus on manufactured our own IGBTs, as well as, because it's already included. It's not just only in solar, but as well as in other businesses for Huawei, that it's including the telecom, including the carrier business, or enterprise business units, that they are using these kinds of technology as well to introduce new solutions to the local market. The trend number 10, which is the last trend for today, is about our products. It has to be meeting the higher quality of standards, especially what we are seeing from third parties in this industrial, like IEC or CE standards, that it's already available. It's already available in the market, and these standards are already followed by the countries' grid codes. Okay, and when we're saying that these standards are followed by countries' grid codes, Huawei's product has to meet these standards, even to meet it or to be a bit higher than the standards itself. So we make sure that our products is meeting already the highest term of safety and intelligence products that it's already installed for the local markets. This will be end of my presentation about top trends. I hope that it was give you an introduction about what we are seeing, especially that it's coming into a new markets, especially talking about Bahrain. We know that Bahraini market is a promising market later on in the future. We already supplied a couple of projects in Bahrain, and we're looking forward to supply more of these projects to make Bahrain more greener, as well as to be one of the most countries that it has the latest trends and installed the latest trends within the industry. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Omar, for that insightful presentation about the trends in Middle East and Bahrain. Moving ahead, we are moving to our panel discussion. So, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today as we delve into a comprehensive assessment of Bahrain's renewable energy ambitions as set out in the National Renewable Energy Action Plan. In this session, we will uncover the golden opportunities in Bahrain's solar market, from its abundant solar irradiance to enticing government incentives. We'll navigate the challenges, including land constraints and technological demands, and dive deep into the potential of rooftop solar and distributed generation. We'll gain valuable insights, cutting edge innovations in solar inverters and energy storage solutions. Here, I would like to make a small announcement. Attendees can post their questions in the Q&A box, and our speakers will answer those questions at the end of the panel discussion. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce you to our esteemed panel of speakers for today. We have with us Mr. Laurent Longuet, Chief Executive Officer, Siraj Power, a Positive Zero company, Mr. Wasif Sheikh, Chief Technical Officer, Exnoor, Mr. Nazir Muhammad, Founder and Executive Director, Green Energy Solutions, Mr. Rami Hamati, Business Development Manager, Emerge, Mr. Serene Putalat, Business Development Manager, Kanu Clean Max Renewables, and Dr. Hanan Albuflasa, Professor of Renewable Energy from the University of Bahrain. Dr. Hanan will be the moderator for the session today. Over to you, ma'am.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to welcome you all, and thanks to the organizer to this for actually giving me the opportunity to moderate this important event. Over the next 60 minutes, we will be exploring the current landscape and future prospects of solar energy in Bahrain. We have distinguished panel, as you have heard already, of expertise joining us today, who will share their insight and foster engaging discussion. So I encourage all attendees to participate actively in the question and answer session when we run it at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, let's begin our exploration by firstly understanding and assessing Bahrain's renewable energy targets and progress, and analyzing how Bahrain's commitment to net zero emission by 2060 will help the renewable energy integration and specifically the solar sector. Um, with this question in mind, I'm pleased actually to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Rami, who will share his perspective on this question and how it relates to the broader landscape of the solar energy in Bahrain. Mr. Rami, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Hanan. First of all, allow me to thank Solar Quarter for organizing such a insightful webinar, and of course, our dear colleague Omar for sharing the insights about the inverters and the trends of it. It's a real pleasure to be among such bright mind in the solar energy and sharing thoughts about the energy industry, especially in Bahrain in specific, let's say. Now, circulating back to your question about assessing the Bahrain market and exploring the renewable energy targets. To start with, actually, so Bahrain market for the renewable energy started, let's say, back in 2017 by the establishment of the National Renewable Energy Action Plan, the NREAP, of course. So the NREP acted like a cornerstone for Bahrain commitment to integrating solar energy into its power generation mix. Historically speaking, Bahrain used to rely more into on the natural gas and fossil fuels, let's say the primary fossil fuels options. However, with the NRP in place, targets were set according to the plan to reach 5% of the national generation mix by solar, or let's say by energy, by 2025 and 10% by 2035. However, post-COVID, the Crown Prince actually announced a more ambitious and appetite for the renewable energy by doubling this target to 10% or by 2025 and 20% by 2035. This shows Bahrain's strengthening focus on decarbonization, in fact, and also the increased reliance on renewable energy sector, or let's say sources. So, to be honest, one of the main things I'd like to consider it as a governmental incentives showing the progress and the commitments of Bahrain is the introduction also of the net metering scope by the Sustainable Energy Authority. That was in 2019. So by the net metering introduction, which acts for me like, let's say I'm managing both KSA and Bahrain, and I prefer net metering over the feed-in the net billing schematic or feed-in tariff that is presented in Kuwait. Net metering actually allows our clients to export energy into the grid, and the grid somehow act as an energy storage for this exported energy. We can see that Bahrain has made a lot of notable progress trying to achieve the targets through the National Renewable Plan by, as we said, first of all, the introduction of the net metering schematic, and second of all, by the tenders that we are seeing floating in the market at the meantime. So we have many tenders that we have seen, like the 72 mega that has been, let's say, floated in back in 2022. Also another two tenders, which one is the 100 mega for the governmental southern government of Bahrain, and then we have one of the private sector, the steel manufacturers, Bahrain Steel, who also floated another tender, which almost around 90 to 100 mega it was. When these projects are completed, there will be a tangible, let's say, progress on the targets, and I think we'll be achieving somewhere around 50 to 60% of the 2025 target plan. Unfortunately, according to the International Renewable Energy Agency, as we read, to be honest, at the end of 2022, we can see that only 12 mega has been installed in Bahrain up to the end of the 2022. And even progressing forward with 2023, there was an increase, but the increase is not as rapid as it is gonna be when these tenders come into realization and into completion to reach these targets. Yeah, I think with this, another governmental incentives, I'm sorry, I'm just thinking out loud with you also now, is let's say the implementation of the private and public partnership. We can see this came into realization as well this year also with the Saudi government. So it was between Mumtalakat and Saudi. They signed an MOU with a worth value of $5 billion. So I believe also this MOU will act as a driver force into delivering the targeted percentages that Bahrain is looking for. And it will also open the opportunities to new policies to come into place. Like personally, from our perspective, when we look at it as a developer, we believe that this MOU will also allow one of the main challenges that we used to face, which is it will allow the wheeling concept to be implemented in Bahrain, hopefully. And by this, the rapid of solar energy we see it even going faster and faster. Thank you.
Actually, Mr. Rami, thank you very much for the insight. Actually, you have touched many topics here. First of all, maybe the numbers are a little bit higher than what has been recorded or actually been announced in the published reports. So Bahrain is actually having more than that. And the percentage, I can say it's more than 20% of the target that we want to reach is there. But at the same time, as you mentioned, a huge projects has been announced recently. We have heard about, and it's actually in the process of actually commissioning. Or it's in the developing stage, some of them. So it's more than what has been announced that is actually already now in the system. But you have touched a point which is very important, and maybe this I will throw it as a question, but at the same time, I will ask Mr. Wasif to more elaborate on this part, which is part of the challenge, because you have mentioned you prefer more the net metering than the feed-in tariff, and then you have explained also the wheeling, and maybe the audience are not aware of what is wheeling, net metering, or feed-in tariff. If you, just before we move into the challenges and opportunities with these three models, if you don't mind, Mr. Rami, just to explain briefly about the wheeling and net metering and the feed-in tariff here.
Sure, absolutely, Dr. Hanan. I don't want to take much time of my dear colleagues, panelists' time, but to put it in short, so the net metering, as I said before, it's the net metering when our renewable energy system will export the excess of energy generated. If it's not consumed by our client, it's going to be exported to the grid by default. So let's say in Kuwait, they use the feed-in tariff, where the government is going to pay you a price for this exported energy higher than your consumption rate, higher than the tariff that you are purchasing the electricity from. However, in the net metering stage, net metering will act as the grid will act as a grid, as a storage system for you. So the exported energy will actually you'll have like some sort of an account by kilowatt hour instead of money, by kilowatt hour, that you can use during the let's say off day, not off days, but when the sun rests. So if there's no generation in the PV system, you'll still have an account of kilowatt hour that you exported to the grid, which you can utilize at a certain free of cost, and then the grid or EWA themselves will do the accountability for it. So when we say, to be honest, why we do prefer as a developers, why do we prefer the net metering over feed-in tariff? Because eventually, as developers, when we size our systems to our clients, when you have a net metering system, you can easily, let's say, cover the whole consumption of your client, as easy as that. However, in feed-in tariff or net billing schematic, you need to make sure that your client or the system that you are sizing for your client does not oversize that much. Because to give an example, I like to give examples more to make it more realistic. And in Saudi Arabia, it's not feed-in tariff, it's a net billing. However, the tariff that is being paid in Saudi Arabia is around 3.5 to 5 halala to every kilowatt hour that is exported to the grid. On the other hand, the tariff for the industrial is 18 halala. And let's assume I'm selling my electricity at 17. So if I oversize my system and the client or my off-taker did not consume the whole energy and he exported to the grid, the fact is the client is losing money financially. And the same concept goes for the feed-in tariff. However, he's not losing money, but in Kuwait, for example, they have a feed-in tariff. However, the tariff is highly subsidized. So if you size your system, he will be consuming all the electricity. So it's hard for him to export, especially with the cap.
Yeah, so it's more like a challenges here, Mr. Rami, I think. It's one of the challenges. Exactly. Which will allow Mr. Wasif Ben to talk about it, because definitely we'll come back to you as we go in the discussion. But Mr. Wasif, if you don't mind, keeping this in mind, how you think the challenges and the opportunities will be able to shape the future of the industry, the solar industry, specifically in Bahrain.
Thank you, Dr. Helen. Firstly, thank you to Solar Quarter for putting out this very nice discussion. And yeah, Rami's points are very valid, right? These become concerns or challenges, let's say, or opportunities if you look at it in a different way in any solar market, right? Now, if you're talking about particularly if let's say we're talking about challenges in Bahrain market. If you're looking at it from different perspectives, those are technical, commercial, or policies. Right? Now, let's touch upon policy so that we have a continuous discussion to what Rami said. Now, yes, net metering is definitely, I think, proven as a policy that has enabled faster adoption of solar, right? Because you can use the grid basically as your energy storage. Anything surplus you generate in the day, you feed it to the grid, use it at night. It's a very very effective way of using maximizing your potential, solar potential, right? Now, I think there's also another way to look at it is in certain, now every policy kind of aligns to solve different problems, right? Every country, every grid has their own overview of how they want to shape the national policy. For example, in Saudi Arabia, it's net billing, and what they really want to push the consumers is to consume everything that they generate themselves, right? And not to overstress the grid, perhaps. Now, if you're looking at in terms of how it grows in context with the plan that Bahrain has over the next 2 years, 2025 target, 2035 target, 2060 target, you'll probably see that you'll have, of course, the net metering, which will enable quick solar adoption on rooftops and so on. And at some point, there would be where our colleague Umar was mentioning earlier, the need for energy storage to come in, and especially maybe grid forming energy storage. And then the question becomes, you might have to have some adoption to this net metering policy because your grid is already your energy storage. So why would people have decentralized energy storage options, right? So we expect that this will evolve over a period of time. Right? It's net metering today, maybe in 10, 15 years, because net metering, let's say the available potential for solar rooftop in Bahrain is estimated at 200 to 300 megawatts, right? And if you look at your targets, when we're looking at 2025, 2035, that has, I think 2025 is about 200. So that kind of really helps Bahrain meet its 2025 target. And when you move to 2035, which is a 700 megawatt, then we need, to Rami's point, the other aspects to kick in. For example, wheeling becomes very critical because even in the projects that we are speaking with to the several industries in Bahrain, where the Bahraini government has been very proactive in enabling in this process of developing these solar projects. There is this one challenge of available land in Bahrain, right? And this is a very key aspect that I think all of us together are trying to find a solution to. And the positive news and the more, I think the encouragement is that the utility organizations in Bahrain have taken note of this well in advance. And there are a lot of different technologies, let's say technology-wise and policy-wise, they're trying to find a solution, right? It's exploring offshore wind. I know I'm deviating a little from the topic, but I think when you talk about policies, you have to look at it from a comprehensive perspective of how they meet this target, right? And floating solar, some of the areas that have now been assigned by the agencies in Bahrain, and to again going back to what Rami mentioned, very important is the wheeling. If they can through GCCI, which is the authority which oversees wheeling with different countries, start developing a wheeling program across, let's say with Saudi Arabia, then that becomes very critical, would become very critical, and I think would definitely help. Definitely from a developer perspective, it would fast track things a lot and help Bahrain meet those targets rather progressively as it moves on.
You
Um,
see, from your side, if you don't mind, so
yeah,
from your point of view, it is actually wheeling will help to boost. So this is one of the opportunities that we are not considering at the moment.
no, I think we've seen in continuous conversations with utilities in Bahrain, this is being explored at the time, but again, this is also something that will take significant amount of time, right? Because it's as a mechanism to be implemented is a little more complicated. So, what is really encouraging for us as developers in the
Mhm.
Bahraini market is that there are short-term goals and there are long-term goals, right? In the short-term goals, the net metering will allow quick solar adoption. So, let's say out of the rooftop potential that's in Bahrain, if you hit the 200, 300 and maximize that, that's that can be enabled with the policy we have today, right? So nobody has to wait for further policies to hit this goal. And when you're talking about long-term net zero ambitions, that could then, by then, the idea is that the wheeling policies come in place over the next 2, 3 years, and then there's progress on that front as well. So, for example, for net metering, Bahrain has a very effective online seamless approval process. The PPP partnerships are really encouraged in Bahrain. That's another very positive sign for developers like us. So, from a commercial perspective, I wouldn't say there are a lot of challenges in Bahrain. It's pretty encouraging. The main challenge that we usually face is when you finish the rooftop solar, where do you go for land, right? Because that's the main challenge that comes across. And
So
but yes,
I'm happy you have mentioned the rooftop solar because that will take us to the second, actually, or the third point of here, and how we can explore more the advantages of actually using the rooftop solar. And I'm sure you, as in the market, you have done a lot of projects which is related to rooftops. But let me throw this question to Mr. Sarin here and see what is the potential here that we have, what is even the challenges and things that need to be taken into consideration when we are developing actually rooftop solar in Bahrain.
Yeah.
And then we'll come
Hi.
back to you, Mr. Yeah, please.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank Solar Quarter, First View, and Dr. Hanan for giving me this opportunity. It's quite a insightful webinar, and really glad to address such an esteemed audience also. Dr. Hanan, so my topic for distributed solar and rooftop installation. If you take a look at it, Bahrain, we are an island nation, and we have a very dense population, and it's all built around cities. And if you look at it, as Mr. Wasif said, that land is a very limited resource. So we have a lot of space, rooftop space available, and the power plants that we have, like right now, we have Hid, Sitra, and Aldur power plants that is catering to the electrical needs of the country. So it's a very centralized infrastructure that we have, and there is also a lot of transmission losses that come into transmitting centrally. So when Bahrain, geographically it's located in the Middle East. It's a hotspot for solar irradiation. We have more than 2200 kilowatt hour per square meters. So, and we have all this unused space on the rooftop that is available for tapping. So, solar being a very scalable and modular solution gives more power to the people. So, you can potentially reduce your reliance on conventional energy sources and the grid by going solar, both for the residential and the commercial sectors. And one of the most beautiful things, as the earlier speakers have touched upon is the Bahrain's net metering policy, which is one of its kind. Only in UAE it has been adopted uh, in the other GCC countries. So basically, we can connect solar directly to the grid. There's no need of a battery, and all the electricity that is generated works in tandem or in sync with the grid. So if you are using more, you can pull it from the grid. Whatever solar makes, you're also using in case you're traveling, or there's an excess generation. You can use EVA like a bank account, give it back to them, and then use it at a later stage. So looking at all of this, Bahrain has an immense solar potential, and the only with the years, the advancements in technology, the efficiency has been increasing, the cost of solar has been decreasing. So we are at an advantage here. And as Mr. Rami had mentioned that earlier it was only like 12 megawatt installed, and now with all the new projects, hundreds of megawatt is being announced in Bahrain. So there is so much of capacity that is being announced by not only the government entity, but also there is like private sector engagement.
Yeah.
So various private companies have come forward, and they have pledged for their rooftop spaces to be installed with solar. One of the notable or recent case studies that we have is the Bahrain Aluminium Extrusion Company, Belexco in Sitra, which where it's a 2.25 megawatt rooftop installation, where they have the plant contributes to around 30% of their electricity needs. So they have reduced their dependence on the grid, and also it helps offset their carbon emissions. So the 2.25 megawatt reduces their carbon emissions by around 1700 metric tons, which is equivalent to removing around 380 cars of the roads of Bahrain, or planting 21,500 trees. So not only it helps achieve their ESG targets, but also contributes to the kingdom's goals overall. So, in terms of potential, the net metering policy, private sector adoption, and initiative from people uh, to support that, like one of the challenges has been the cost of the system. The capital expense initially is high, for which there are now developers for example, we at Kano CleanMax, we install solar for commercial sectors and industries with no upfront cost to them, so they can like lease to own the system. um, yeah, and with the reducing cost of the system, the overall payback period also has reduced from before it was close to 10 years. Now it has come down to 5 to 7 years, depending on the complexity of the system.
So the solar rooftop is working nicely with actually the resident the industrial sector and commercial sector, because
Mhm.
their tariff is different, but
Yes.
they represent small in terms of the size. If we're going to look at the challenges that mentioned also by our speakers,
Mhm.
then the size of the rooftop availability for these sectors are smaller than, for example, the residential sector. So
Mhm.
if you allow me to just to for in a not more than 2 minutes, for the questions for any of our free speakers, because they have covered the challenges and even the target of the country. How do you see the involvement of the residential sector in this story? Where are they? How they can fit? How we can look at in even the future that we can encourage them to be part of the rooftop?
Yes.
It's open to the three of you. Mhm.
Okay, Dr. Hanan, so I'll go first. So the
Yes,
rooftop
please.
ideally can provide almost 30 percentage of the residential sector if all of the roofs in Bahrain are covered with solar, it can contribute to over 30% of the electrical demand for the residential sector. And Tamkeen and private banks have started schemes where the residential sector, they can apply for loans, and it's readily available to them. But for the primary, the Bahraini residents, it is already subsidized, the electricity. But for the second house onwards, it looks like it's a small area. Every villa, you can install maybe 20-30 kilowatt. But overall, when you look at the big picture and everyone goes solar, I believe it will contribute significantly towards Bahrain's sustainability goals.
Perfect. Mr. Rami or Mr. Also, if there is anything
Uh,
you would like to add to this point?
Actually, for the residential, يعني, as mentioned by Serene, first of all, if we targeted the whole residential, if we looked at the Bahrain total consumption, and please, Dr. Hanan, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I know is Bahrain, or what I've seen from the trends lately, that Bahrain total consumption is around 31 terawatt hour per year, uh, plus maybe plus 31 terawatt hour. So
Yeah.
if we segregated the sectors for that consumption, we can see that the residential contribute between 10 to 20% of that whole total consumption. So residential can be one of the approaches that can be a quick reach to the targets and sustainability goals of Bahrain. However, unfortunately, as a developer, we mostly target, let's say, the C&I sector, so commercial and industrial sector,
Mm.
and that's where our, let's say, most experience comes in within, because we'd like to target like projects with, let's say, a couple of megas up to 100 mega or so plus. But I'd say one more thing about the residential, which might sound challenging. As Sinar, maybe we can cover 30%, as Sinar said. That's due to the fact that you need to do a lot of shading analysis, so the whole roof cannot be utilized for installing solar. You'll have the water tanks, you'll have many obstacles that will affect the generation of the system itself, and
Mhm.
might occur some future, let's say, technical challenges for them. But it's a good approach. If the government, I'm not really sure if the government offers any loans, to be honest, from my side.
Mhm.
But if there's any green loans, or the government offers some incentives for the residential to make it more viable, it would be a great approach, and a quick win to reach the targeted capacity that we're looking for in 2025 and 2035. Because as mentioned before, commercial, regardless of the utility takes time for the development, for moving forward, it takes a lot of time. However, commercial and residential projects, the rooftop projects, are easy, fast going projects that can help facilitate into achieving the targets.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think this will take us immediately. Now we are shifting the discussion into more technology and innovation, because this is very important. And usually the individuals, they don't really talk about the inverters or storage. They are very important even in terms of the overall efficiency of the solar system efficiency, and how the production, especially looking at the conditions and the environmental conditions of Bahrain. I would, of course, give the mic to Mr. Nazir to more talk about the challenges and opportunities, and highlight on the efficiency in general, and how actually we can be a market of inverters and storage. I'm not going to say just the users, and we have to improve the system. Also, how we be part of the market. Mr. Nizar?
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning to everyone, and thanks for the Solar Quarter organizing this session. And thank you, Dr. Hanan, for giving me a chance. All the part being at the last is good, that you get a lot of knowledge and a lot of information, but on the same time get more challenging. So I think we have 10 minutes. Well, I'll try to do in maybe 5 minutes, then we can go for the question answers. Yeah. So most of the point is shared by my colleagues, but few things I will highlight. Residential market, I think Rami is the major like a contributor or a load to the national grid. I think it's more than 56%. But another challenge is that in the past, the building code was not considered for the solar. If you want to install today solar on the rooftop of a residential, you cannot find any space. So the satellite antennas are taking the space, the water tank is taking the space, and if anything is remaining, then our families are utilizing to for the drying up our outfits. So I mean, it's a building code need to be set at this stage, that in the future, if solar need to be installed, or at currently the, I don't know how much cost to alter that dish, even though internet is taking that dish out, but still it's there, plus the water tanks is there. So if that part can be considered through the new, there is a lot of new construction ongoing. A very interesting project is done by Diyar Al Muharrak, this Dragon Mall. So maybe the villa which they are constructing, I hope they're considering the access of the solar at the roof. The second point is the peak. The peak demand of Bahrain is the biggest challenge. A few years back, I met in ministry His Highness Dr. Mirza. They discussed the peak, and Bahrain peak is today around 4 gigawatt, and this peak is going to be 6.5 gigawatt by 2030. So who's the contributor of peak is the air conditioning. It's not industry. So the air conditioning is another load challenge, and the problem is our the curve of peak is coming in the evening, and that time the solar is not there. So energy storage we cannot ignore. So of course the solar will work with the help of energy storage for the residential if we want. And thanks to the EV, and I saw the Bahrain is already trying to set up the legislation for electric cars. Maybe the from EV to the grid as a battery with the combination of solar in the residential will be a game changer. And plus the last point I think mentioned by Wasef is the solar floating. I will definitely encourage the solar floating because we recently did a project in Aramco. So it's a great, we are getting a dead space, we are getting a cool environment for the panels, and it's close to the where we need it. So I think these are a few ways we can go forward. And the last but not least, the solar diesel. Solar diesel is another, because a lot of the we are currently working with introducing the solar diesel hybrid solution, where we can achieve the more than 70% of the diesel. Yeah, I mean, these are the areas with the technology improvement. Now the inverters are there which can handle. Huawei do have an inverter which can work as a solar diesel hybrid, and plus the energy storage. So these are the thing which is fit to the application. But as building codes are more important when it's come to the residential.
Um, Thank you very much. But let me just focus more into the technology, because we have more talked about the grid connected systems. And when we talk about the inverters or the storage, we also having the grid as a backup there. What if we have a standalone system? What about the off-grid systems? How do you see this will be also an opportunity, for example, for small businesses or for farms or any other application?
Yeah, off grid, especially even though the agriculture is not much here, but the water pumping is a very, very ideal application for the off grid system where you don't need batteries. So you can store the water in the storage water tank, and whenever you need it, you can use it. So this is one of the application, especially the area in the Rif area. I see a lot of farms are there. So these guys, the customers can utilize the solar water. And plus, of course, I love the remote tents, and the winter is coming. So these people are also could utilize. And as I told you recently, we are working with the Babco now on their remote locations to provide them an off-grid system. So yes, this, and plus the telecom, all the telecom sites are off-grid, and that can be completely isolated, run with the help of off-grid solution. Either it could be solar diesel or it could be solar batteries. So yeah, technology is available there. And another biggest contributor is the street lighting. So the solar street lights, so far we cannot see much in Bahrain, but that could be another good things on the highways or inside the cities. And there is a many ways technology improve in Saudi. uh, a lot of in thousands of number of units are installed so far, and it's a great application of off-grid PV system in the solar street lighting.
So maybe someone in the audience, maybe I'll pick the question now, and just what do you think about? There is an opposition to the batteries anyway. I know when we talk about the e-cars or the electric cars, or when we talk about the storage inside or cooperated with renewable energy in general, the talk about batteries is very disturbing for some people. So, what do you think? How we can have a more environmental sustainable integration of the batteries into our power system and have a proper management of this? What are the infrastructure required?
Yeah, lithium is so far is the hot topic, but lithium our challenge. Unfortunately, our region is a hot climate area, and lithium is not much happy in this weather. But for air conditioning, thermal storage is a good option, and absorption chiller. I know that some of the project in Bahrain is done with the absorption chiller. So as I mentioned earlier, the air conditioning is the biggest load. So to fix the
Mm.
air conditioning, the absorption chiller or a thermal storage is a good option. But for the grid stability or voltage regulation or all this, yeah, energy storage and Huawei, SunGrow, all these companies have done a great job in the thermal management of a lithium battery. So again, it's available on the shelf
Mm.
for technologies. Especially recently, Huawei have deployed in the Red Sea more than 2 MWh. Huawei have to pay me a good commission for their sales. I'm doing a lot of things for today for them. So I mean, they had done a recent project, and SunGrow is also, I saw one of the event. They have a good thermal management system. So I think from the large scale is the lithium so far, and on a small
Um,
scale for the residential thermal storage, I would recommend with air conditioning.
Thank you very much. And this actually will take us to Mr. Laurent. Thank you very much for joining us. We are happy to have you here. And this will actually allow us to open the discussion on the future outlook. I think after all what has been discussed, we would love to see how Bahrain will change the energy sector in the future. How do you see this?
Yes, thank you for having me on this panel. Um, uh, in Siraj Power and Positive Zero, our mother company, we strongly believe that distributed solar sector is about to go through some major changes. We have mentioned some of my esteemed colleagues have mentioned about the lack of space available in general in Bahrain and some other countries, and then the need to go for a rooftop carport and etc. We are big believers in that, no question about it. Um, I think it was just mentioned as well about management of the peak and the challenges coming from this high peak demands on most of the countries in the region. And as well, it was mentioned about the growth of electric vehicles and the electricity demand that will come with it. So we strongly believe that it's time, and that's what we do in Siraj Power in Positive Zero. It's time to start looking at the energy challenge of our clients, not only through solar efficiency or electric vehicles, but to look at it globally. So that's why we are proposing now some global solutions to our clients, where we try to combine into the same project, optimizing their energy production by installing solar wherever we can, but as well trying to address the demand by reducing their peak energy. So particularly in this country, energy is, consumption is coming from cooling, and we know by experience that most of facilities in these regions are highly inefficient when it comes to cooling, and that better managing chillers, better managing how the chillers are controlled can help to reduce energy consumption and to reduce the peak. Uh, in average, it's 30%, so it's massive. And when it comes to electric vehicles, I'm sure of the people in this panel, they are seriously thinking about shifting to electric vehicles. It's the same for most companies. Most of our clients, logistic companies, industrial companies, they have in mind to start shifting to electric vehicles because it is cheap, because it's green, because it's a way for them to achieve their carbon reduction targets. But doing so is complex. It takes infrastructure. You need charger, so you need additional power available, which is not necessarily available directly from the grid. It takes to select the right vehicles. It takes to adopt as well the right strategy when it comes to the type of vehicle you select, how you charge them, how you combine that with your solar system, and how you can make it effective. So that's we really see the future of distributed solar in positive zero in this new world where it's going to be about really thinking globally about how to properly address the energy demand and energy production of our clients, and technology will be the key for it. So we are investing a lot into new technologies.
You mean that the way to move forward, I mean, you are encouraging the distributed solar here, especially when we are introducing the electric cars. Am I
Yes,
correct?
yes, definitely. Not on solar is a no-brainer to a certain extent. Today there is no way to there is no cheapest way to produce electricity than to install solar. So of course we are strong believers in solar. That's what we do. We are installing more than 10 megawatts of solar system at the moment in Bahrain, and we'll continue to do so. But we believe as well that it's time to go one step beyond by as well starting to propose solutions to our clients where they can reduce their energy demand as well, because it's important for when you operate a business, having cheap solar electricity, it's a way to reduce your cost of energy, but reducing your consumption is a very powerful and efficient way to do it. And that's where we are proposing as well to work on what we call cooling as a service, where basically we retrofit or we install some new chiller plants, and we finance it, and we share the savings with our client over a long life, so they don't need to invest capex on it. And we believe as well it's important to start thinking about the next step, which is electric vehicles, and how you can charge these electric vehicles, combine it with as it was mentioned right before, the opportunity as well to inject energy to the grid from these electric vehicles, because it will be needed as well to reduce the peak and to resolve the challenges we will face.
As you know, that for charging the electric cars, definitely you have to have a policy of when the charging will happen. I want to be careful by using the word policy, because people will charge their cars if they need to, and this could make a stress on the grid, yes, but also distributing the charging points could actually help on that. It will be, as you mentioned, as the panels mentioned, a storage way or a storage system also. If I would say to everyone here, and thank you very much actually for really giving us a very good insight of the solar market. If I would say that I would need just a one statement of our panelists about what they think will be the something that need to be added to the future outlook for Bahrain, or the future strategy, if we're going to say, to promote solar. So I'll push this a little bit higher. So if we can say that we can come out now with a set of points that it is important to add at the moment. What do you think, Amabi? I mean, I will start with Mr. Rami.
Thank you, Dr. Hanan. So, as I said before, I think the most and vital thing for us, in order to for Bahrain to promote solar more, is to give the approvals for the wheeling systems. Uh,
For
as we
wheeling.
discussed, wheeling, yes, as we discussed before, there is a restrictions, high restriction on the land availability in Bahrain, and in order for Bahrain to meet its targets and its ambitious and all of these percentages, wheeling is one of the things that need to be considered actually in order for us to make it achievable.
Perfect, thank you. And Mr. Wasif?
Hi. Yeah. No, I think I concur with Rami on this. I think the primary challenge that we see today, once you move away from the rooftops and the carports, is the availability of land, and wheeling will help a lot. Now, this is purely from a solar ambition perspective, but I would reiterate what Laurent was earlier saying, that we also have to look at from a comprehensive problem, right? So, but from a solar perspective, yes, wheeling is one, but the movement, the continuous movement on the energy efficiency programs and all those things will definitely add meeting the carbon, the net zero ambitions in the long term. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Nazir?
Yeah, I will say one statement that we need to reduce the subsidy from the existing current conventional power source and increase the tariff, and so people can forcefully go to the renewable. That's the way forward if you need to move, because the residential market is the main contributor in the energy demand. So the people will not go solar regardless if you don't increase the tariff. Fatula.
I'm with you. I know it's very hard topic to discuss, to talk, but I'm 100% with this point also. Mr. Sareen?
Even the audience today even the audience in the webinar will catch me in Bahrain next time, but this is the fact.
Yeah, you have to be careful.
They will absolutely not like your statement, Nizar, for just increasing the tariff.
Locking. Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Hanan, something I agree with Wasif and Rami that wheeling will help because one limited land area, and we have a lot of people staying in flats where they don't really have access to the space on the roof for installation. So something like wheeling, but also there has to be purchase of solar electricity for individual users uh, on large scale solar plants. So something like what Sunday Grids has done,
All right.
where the government or private entities own a large solar plant, and individual users can buy some like the electricity from say 5 solar panels or 10 solar panels, rather than like as Mr.
Yeah.
Nazir said, there is all the obstacles on the roof. People don't have space, especially in residential sectors. So if there is some form of mechanism where they can buy the green electricity without actually installing within their premises,
Mm.
that would escalate, and
Yeah,
also
this is
needs
very
for.
important, but
Yes.
definitely require yeah.
Yeah, and also as Mr.
Yes,
Nazir
please.
said, the tariff is still low in Bahrain, and there is no sense of urgency. Everyone is waiting for tomorrow, and tomorrow, though technology is kind of at its peak right now, the prices are at an all-time low. Still, we don't see that much sense of urgency. So, some awareness in that aspect would also help.
Lovely. And you have talked about two very important topics, which is again the tariff, but also having to change the purchasing of electricity in the system. That means a complete change in the way we are dealing now with the energy transmission and distribution in order to achieve that. Totally correct. Mr. Lauren, you have the final statement here.
Yeah, I think my colleagues have already told a lot when it comes purely to what's needed for solar. I think for what we were mentioning before about addressing the overall challenge, which includes trying to limit the peak demand. The technologies are available: batteries, demand management, energy efficiency. But today, the fact that we have a flat tariff throughout the day does not give any incentive for clients to try to limit their peak, because whether they use the energy during the peak hours or not, they pay the same tariff. So I think most probably with again the aim to start being giving us the opportunity to bring some solutions. The tariff should reflect the actual cost of producing this energy, and by doing so, as soon as we have it, clients will be incentivized to try to reduce consumption during the peak hours. The good thing is that we have the technology, we have the possibility to help them to do so, but we need a true tariff to be put in place for being able to start proposing such a solution. So in the same way that Wheeling can help to develop solar, a tariff reflecting the actual cost could help as well us proposing solutions to introduce demand management in the business we do on a daily basis.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Well, I'm actually pointing points here. I hope that I will be part of the new energy plan for Bahrain. I will definitely put this into consideration. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for all the information that you have provided. And I believe we are just on time for the Q&A session. Back to you.
Yes, thank you all for the most insightful session that we have today. Moving ahead, we have quite a few questions that have been posted by our audience. I will be screening them on stage here, one by one. So this is our first question.
The question is directed to, it's not directed to any of the speakers. I mean, like anyone could actually answer it.
Yeah, I will just comment that, this is the same statement which I mentioned. The tariff is low, so there is no value addition for the homeowner to go for solar, like maybe a carbon credit. Again, residential customer can no get benefit from carbon credit, but maybe they can trade with the carbon credit. But ROI is a very good today, because as my colleague mentioned, the solar prices are on. But the challenge is once we compare with the existing, if even 7 years, honestly speaking, as a residential customer, we the tariff is the challenge.
Yeah. Also, Dr. Hanan, to add to that, though their payback is 6 years, the system is expected to last 25 plus years. So after 6 years, it's free electricity for them.
Very much. Thank you very much. We have another question, which is, what are the source you have to raise the finance for green energy projects, both in Bahrain and globally?
Maybe
fundraising consultant for green projects. All right, that's interesting.
Maybe
Mr. Nuram, you want to
if you allow me, we see, and it's very interesting that while funding has started to be available for utility scale projects probably more than 10 years ago, when it comes to distributed solar, it's much more recent. Most banks and investors were quite reluctant until recently to invest into this sector, but it has shifted over the past 2 or 3 years. We just a couple of examples in Siraj Power, we have been able to welcome on board Apicor, Saudi Bahraini bank, back in 2020, which has provided us some debt facility, long-term debt facility, so very much similar to what's available for utility scale. So that was the first in the region, but we see now more and more banks ready to do it. We work currently with Emirates and BD, and we start seeing even international banks from Europe and elsewhere coming to the region to finance it. So on the banking sector now is happy to finance it. When it comes to large investors, we have seen as well recently in the region some very large investors starting to finance companies like us. So us, we are now we have now BlackRock investing in us. Our friends from Yellow Doors have managed as well to attract some very large international investors. So the good news is today there is no cash restriction. There is no lack of funding when it comes to developing solar, whether it's utility scale or distributed solar. As long as you have a proper setup in place, you have a proper way to select your clients, you have proper procedure into implementing, and you have a track record. Today, I would say the challenge is not to find some investors or banks. The challenge is to find some good projects to invest this money in.
I want to add to the question, actually, something here, which is completely correct in terms of the big projects that we have no problem at all. Maybe we have come to across a situation here with the residential again, because of the low tariff. People are interested in going to green energy, but yet it will be very expensive to install really solar panels, considering the actual tariff at the moment. So the discussion was how the finance sector could actually provide a specific type of financing, or not fully like financing the project, but it could be having like a better, let's say, rate here in order to help such a project. So this is just using the finance in a way to be distributed at smaller projects rather than larger projects. At the moment, it really doesn't exist that much, and it was a discussion for quite a time, really. And we hope that this could be one of the things that we're going to tackle. Thank you very much for the question. Then any other questions we have here? Yeah, perfect. So we have this question directly to Mr. Rami. If you want to go through it, please, and
Yes.
we'll be happy
Yes,
to
sure.
have your answer.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Dr. Hanan. Yes, it's true, as we mentioned. So the target has been doubled after post-COVID by the Crown Prince to 10% instead of 5%. Now, if we actually want to calculate the 10% target in comparison to the total consumption of the Bahrain, we're talking about 1 giga of installed capacity. However, in the NREAP, what has been mentioned was 255 mega. That was relevant to the 5%, let's say, scope. Now, with the 10%, they are targeting 510 mega, we'd say, somewhere around this number. So, though it is much lower than the 1 giga of the 10% they are targeting, still the 510 is considered like an immediate approach and immediate goal to achieve by Bahrain. So the 10%, I'd say it more translates into a 500 mega capacity at the moment. Dr. Hanan, of course, I stand corrected if you want to add anything to it.
Yeah, by 2025, we still have to meet the 5%, which is the 250, as you mentioned. Yes, and if we're going to double this, it's going to be 500. I don't think there is a discussion on the 10% for 2025. It's the discussion only for 250 megawatt. Yes, for the 20% by 2035, that will be around 1 giga, as correct as you mentioned. That is what we have to think about, in a way that it has been doubled really compared to the 700 something. But if we can think about this, these are really percentages of an actual or peak capacity or peak consumption, I would say. And Bahrain has done well in terms of reducing the consumption, the annual consumption of energy compared to the forecasted or the projection when the NEAP and REAP was first developed. So, so these numbers we are talking about, just roughly we'll say that we are talking about 250 and above,
Yes.
and of course 1 giga and above for the 2035. Yes, correct. Thank you very much, Mr. Rami. And we'll see the next question. All right. I have a question. Why are solar panels are the primary focus in addressing carbon footprint reduction compared to other renewable energy sources? Not addressed to anyone. So if anyone would like to answer the question.
I think here, if I might jump in here, I think he's related to the photovoltaic system instead of the solar panels compared to the other renewable sources like wind or geothermal,
Yeah, busy.
something like this. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, why we're focusing more on the solar or on the photovoltaic system because it's more reliable sources compared to the impact that it's happened by the wind energy and geothermal, which is you needed much land, you needed some aspects that you have to take it in consideration in terms of the environment as well, in the environment impact. And we all know that the wind energy is producing way much uh, bigger, let's say, way much larger energy in terms of production, but in terms of the environmental impact, it has environmental impact. It has a huge environmental impact, and we saw this in some countries, especially in Europe, like Germany or Netherlands, when they had the regulation of reducing the part of the wind energy compared to what it's happening to the environmental impact. So I would say that the photovoltaic system is more reliable in terms of operation and maintenance, as well as in terms of reliability in the project cycle itself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Omar. It is indeed, and it will be different for each country also.
Yeah.
So usually, I mean, for the NIA, for the RIAB in Bahrain, they have mentioned all the other renewable energy sources. So it was not only one single source. Yeah, the biggest was for solar energy, but wind was also mentioned. Biomass was also mentioned. Of course, in Bahrain, we don't have geothermal. So definitely we will be talking more about the solar
Yeah,
PV.
and yes,
We
and
are
this is
not
based
talking
on the
about,
energy mix.
yes, indeed. And also there is the solar CSP. And the CSP was also discussed, and proposals were actually also submitted to the government of Bahrain. And there was a few things in the proposals and the projects that need to be looked at, which needs to address a few things to make it more reliable and more feasible and also more environmentally friendly for the country. So, as mentioned by Mr. Omar, it is more reliable now to talk about solar PV, um, photovoltaic systems compared to the other resources. Yet the biomass definitely has to be considered in any country because it's
Yeah.
available and it's there. And inshallah, we hope that we will have one system here. Inshallah. The next question? We have a question to Mr. Sareen. If you would like to look at the question and please provide us with
Yeah.
your answer.
Sure. As you mentioned, your company is involved in providing sustainable solutions for C&I consumers. If I may ask, what is the available solar market size for C&I sector and year-on-year growth, which Bahrain can expect in the next 3 to 5 years? So I believe Mr. Wasif had said that, like as per our current targets, it's 700 megawatt by 2030. Dr. Hanan, if I'm not wrong. So right now, of the announced project, I would give it around 350 megawatt is announced. So that's 350 in the next 5 years. So around 70 megawatt a year average, if you take a linear trajectory. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We have what is the expected growth in the IPP capacities per year in Bahrain? Oh, all right. Who will take this question? Anyone in the panelists, they know numbers
Dr.
that
Hanan,
we
you
can
can
share with
answer.
the audience?
Sure.
Dr. Hanan, you are the best person to answer.
I won't. Um, I, I, it's very difficult to answer. I'll be honest with you. That's why I'm throwing it to
I
you.
think I think I think if I may, I think this will really depend on policies that such as wheeling that would come in place, right? Because we're talking about IPP capacities, we're talking at least 100 megawatt plus projects, and I think all my esteemed colleagues would agree on the panel that the main challenge, the technology is there, right? It's being done on a global scale in many countries. The specific challenge that needs to be addressed over here is where do you build it? And once we see that the wheeling is a potential opportunity, I think we would see rapid growth in the sector. Hope that answers.
Yeah, it's the per year thing is that it would be difficult. I mean, to really give you that number.
Yeah.
Yet, definitely, there must be a specific percentage considered per year if we want to reach our targets. But at the moment, we see that we have so many projects in the pipeline and capacities in the pipeline that they could actually all be satisfied in 1 year or 2 years time. So I don't know if we have really, I myself have an answer for this to be said exactly this is what we are expecting per
If
year.
I would like to add here one thing for this question specifically
Yes.
about because we're talking about Bahrain. Actually, when we had the market insight over the region, we have split the region into three main categories, which is some countries that we called it business driven markets, as some of the questions that the return of investment on these countries, especially about business driven, is less than 3 years, especially for residential commercial. You can feel there that the commercial part is having an incentive from the government. We're having another section which is the policy driven market, giving clearly example about the GCC area in general, that's including Bahrain, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, UAE as well. Okay, when we talked about the policy driven markets, these countries are already having, like, they are rich in oil, rich in electricity, as well as the fuel price is really affordable and available. Okay, we can see that the numbers here, especially when we're talking about IPP projects, giving a clear example of what's happened in Saudi and implementing the gigawatt scale projects. Actually, they need this electricity as to meet their energy mix and to show they're developed in a way compared to the global market numbers in terms of renewable. Okay, I would say I would then be giving a clear number on how much the capacity will be in IPP, because some of these IPPs, it's done for from the government perspective to meet the carbon neutrality of the global requirement. Okay, I would say, especially about GCC, it's mainly about the policy. The IPP projects, it will be built by the policy, not built by the government to be having incentive on terms of energy generation for the renewable.
Totally and beautifully said, exactly. Which is, as we said, this is going to be, I hope that we can find a question, like a session that we can just focus on these points, that we can elaborate more and talk about the challenge that could hinder actually or help giving this number. We have a question. To make sustainable energy more feasible and reducing consumption by customers, is there any increase of the tariff planned? Um, it's compared to the general cost of 29 pills sold by EWA. Um, well, maybe there is something happening. We don't know. I mean, more
Actually, here
targets are.
I would like to add one point as well here. When we're talking about the return of investment or ROI of investment, we're forgetting a big part, which is about the tariff change, not in terms of increasing or decreasing, but some countries they are going through the different categories, which is changing the tariff method between day and night. Okay, for this it will be opening as well a new part of solar to be installed if the government decide, okay, we're gonna have a change on tariff based on time, or what's happened now in Europe and some countries within the Middle East as well. We saw this like in Jordan's. There are some countries as well as they are implementing the changing of the tariff based on time. Okay, this it can be reducing the ROI of the project. Doesn't mean that increasing the tariff that it will be making the solar project more feasible. No, sometimes just changing the tariff in terms of the method of calculating it, it will generate more and it will bring more benefits to the end users and end customers. Like there is a big part of the incentives that the government is giving as well to the locals in terms of implementing renewable energy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amar. I think we have came to the end of our event today. Thank you very much for all the speakers. Thank you for our audience. Thank you for the questions. And we definitely would love to answer all the questions, just we are limited with the time. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for the organizers.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hanan. Thank you to
Thank
our
you.
Thank you,
panelists.
everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Doc.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Nice to see you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Promise to be back soon with more exciting sessions. Thank you.
Looking forward to it.